I'm going to start over on this slide. Okay, in economics we use models to understand the economy. We use simple models to model complex phenomena, to explain complex scenarios in the real world. We use diagrams and equations oftentimes to simplify our analysis and help us focus on the things that are important. Models are necessarily simplifications of reality, but they can still be useful tools for learning how the world works. The two models that we're going to look at today are something called the circular flow diagram. The circular flow diagram looks like a flow chart, and what we're going to use it to do is analyze how goods and services move through the economy. We're going to consider two types of decision makers, firms and households. One simplification of the model is it doesn't explicitly consider government as a decision maker or a firm. The second thing we're going to examine is the production possibilities frontier. This is a graphical representation in 2 dimensions of a world that produces two goods. And we're going to talk from this about how the economy can produce different combinations of goods and services. And while we'll draw this in 2 dimensions, we do this for ease of expression, ease of simplification, so it can be explained, so it can be presented in a graph. But the basic conclusions are not going to be affected by considering a world with hundreds and thousands of different goods that we might consume. Okay. So the first model we're going to examine is the circular flow diagram. The circular flow diagram, we know it is a visual model of the economy that shows how dollars flow through markets among households and firms. Right? So in this model, we have 2 types of actors. The first one is households. These are the people who make decisions on what to buy, what jobs to work at. And on the other side, we're going to have firms. These are the organizations that produce goods and services. So we've got people who consume goods and services, the households, people who produce goods and services, and we'll talk about how things flow back and forth between the two. We also have 2 markets. The first market is the market for goods and services. This is where households purchase things from firms. Right? Firms produce goods and services, and they sell them in markets, in stores or whatnot, to goods and services. A market is any place where people get together to purchase goods and services. The other side of the equation is the market for factors of production. It's important to note that households also supply something to firms. They supply primarily their labor, but also their other factors of production, including their land, if they have any physical capital, or their investment funds. They supply those to firms as well. So the 2 markets, the goods and services, are things that firms produce for households. The factors of productions are the things that households send to firms in order to produce these goods and services. It's important to notice, if you think about it, over the course of a year or over the course of your life, you're going to sell about as many factors of productions to businesses as you consume in goods and services. Now this makes sense. To buy goods and services, you need income. To generate income, you sell your labor to firms. And so the 2 sides, the 2 markets, should be about equal in size, right? We buy as many things as we sell. Primarily for most people, the thing you're going to sell in largest quantity is your labor. You're going to earn most of your income over your life from labor, but perhaps you'll earn some more from investment income, or perhaps you'll own some land and rent some property or something like that. Okay. There are 2 flows then. There's the flows of inputs and the flow of outputs, right? We've got 2 things that are moving. One is inputs and outputs are real things that move. My work effort, my land, right? And the factors of production. The goods and services that I buy, these are real things. And then the other thing is the flow of dollars. This is the currency that we use to purchase things, right? The currency allows the firm to give us something for our labor that we can then turn around to purchase in terms of goods and services. So this is the flow of money. Okay, so what does our diagram look like? We have a market for factors of production, households selling and firms buying. We have a market for goods and services, where firms sell and households purchase. We have households on one side. Households buy and consume goods and services, and they own and sell the factors of production. And then we have firms. Firms hire and use the factors of production. Firms produce and sell goods and services. And then we have the flows. We'll start with the flow of inputs. We'll start with the flow of inputs from inputs and outputs from firms to goods. Right? Firms produce something. They take it to the store. Right? So I manufacture a box of Cheerios, and I send them off to to the grocery store for where households can consume them. Right? So the first thing that happens is goods and services are sold. The second thing that happens is these goods and services are purchased by households. Okay? Now, following this along, at the same time, households had to put in their labor so that these things could be produced. So households are offering their services into the factors of production through this market. And the factors of production are being purchased by firms. They're hiring workers, they're building stores, they're using land, they're using other raw materials. Now the dollars flow the other direction. Right? The first arrow corresponds with revenue for firms. The second arrow corresponds with the wages, rents, and profits earned by households. This is what households measure as income. This is what households observe as spending. And we note that your income and your spending, with a little bit of allowances, should be about the same. Right? Over the course of your life, you're going to make about as much money as you spend. Perhaps you'll pass some inheritance along to your children, but by and large, when you add up the economy, the value of the things that we consume and the value of the things that we produce is about the same. Okay, so factors of production in the economy. The economy uses a number of resources to produce goods and services. The first thing that we're going to consider is labor, land, and capital. Oops. The things that we're going to consider is is land, labor, and capital. Households own factors of production. They own their land, their labor, and their capital, and they sell or rent them to firms in exchange for income. And then they buy and consume goods and services, to summarize what we have. Firms, on the other hand, buy or hire factors of production. They buy your land, your labor, and your capital, your investment funds, and use them to produce goods and services. Firms also sell goods and services. So these are the roles of the different actors in the circular flow diagram. Okay, now we move